Good morning. I asked you guys a question. What is a gift that you received that when you got it, you were like, really? And then you ended up loving it. And I hadn't looked at my iPad this morning, and my kids, I love my kids, and nothing will ever change that. But they like to take our phones and our iPads and stuff, and they like to change the pictures on the front of them. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is what I opened my iPad up to. Now this is definitely one of those Christmas because it gets a little bit infuriating from time to time when you're like, I just found the perfect picture, but you know what? I love this. I love this because if you've met my youngest daughter, you know that is absolutely 100% her personality. And there is no way that I would ever change anything whatsoever about that. But you know what? I love this time of year. I love everything about it. I love the Christmas story. I love the lights. I love the trees, and I love the gifts and the bows and the packages and the music and just I wasn't going to quite go, but I love the food and the cookies and the sweets and the sweets and the cookies and the sweets and the cookies. And I mean, I could just go on and on about the things that I love about, but seriously, Christmas is one of those times of year, we've said this every week, it's become an iconic thing. Christmas has been around for centuries now at this point, and there are things about Christmas that are just icons that if they weren't there, we would look at it and we would say, well, has it really been Christmas? Things like the Christmas trees and the lights and the music and the people rushing around to buy gifts and the people that are getting together with family and those kind of things, and all the way down to a chubby guy in a red suit flying around with flying reindeer. All of those things. And we look at those kind of things, and even as human beings, we associate those kind of things, and we look at them and we say, well, that's just, at some point as you're getting older, you go, that's just kind of hard to believe. The idea of flying reindeer. But the reality is that now our culture even goes a step further, and we look at those things and go, oh, absolutely, that's absolutely 100% believable. But then we look at the story of Christmas and we say, it's just a little unbelievable. When in reality, this is the story that changed everything. It's the story that changes everything about human existence and everything about who we are as people. And we looked in the very, very first week of this because there are some things that took place during the Christmas story that we still experience today when Christmas rolls around that we kind of overlook. And in the very first week, we looked at one of the centerpieces of the Christmas story, a young girl named Mary. And we look at the Christmas story and we go, well, this is just a little unbelievable. And in reality, Mary felt the same way. And in the first week, we looked at something that she said in Luke chapter 1, verse 34. When she said this, she said, and Mary said to the angel, okay, how will this be? How can this thing happen? How can this be? How is this going to work? Because I'm a virgin. How in the world am I going to have a baby? It was unbelievable. There was something that she couldn't believe what she was hearing. And yet she still goes along with it, even though it was something that was completely unbelievable. And we talked about this idea that she had received a message that confirmed everything she had heard growing up. It confirmed all the stories of a coming Messiah, a coming king, a coming person who would be born to a virgin, who was going to change the world. And the thing that settled it in her mind was when the angel looked at her and said, you're right, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And it was a confirmation, and she went along with it because for her, even in this unbelievable story, there's a truth there that we kind of locked in on, and it was this. That the anticipation of the things that are coming, the anticipation of what's going to happen, keeps us vigilant. Even if you know what's coming, if you know what your Christmas present's going to be, you watch for it to show up under the tree. You wait and you look for it to happen because in that moment you're like, oh, I'm really getting it. And it's the same thing with Mary. She had heard these stories, and it was anticipation that had built and built and built. And now she found herself in a place where it was about to happen. And then last week we kind of took it just a little bit further back in time, where we see a woman named Elizabeth and her husband Zechariah. They had been praying and praying and praying. They were both older people at this point in time. She was somewhere between 88 years old and 100 years old at this point in the story. And her husband Zechariah gets visited by an angel, and he says, Zechariah, your prayers have been heard. Your wife Elizabeth is going to get pregnant. She's going to have a baby. And he laughs at the angel and says, yeah, okay, whatever. She's old. It's not going to happen. And the angel says, okay, fine. Since you don't believe, she's going to get pregnant, but you're going to lose your voice now. And you're not going to be able to speak again until everything happens. And so it all happens exactly the way the angel said it was going to happen. Elizabeth gets pregnant. Zechariah is a mute for 9 months. And in the course of the story, we see something happen. Elizabeth gets visited by her cousin, a young girl named Mary. And as soon as Mary walks in the house and says hello, the baby inside of Elizabeth jumps to celebrate the fact that something amazing is happening. Okay? And we look at this and we start seeing, okay, this is where the Christmas story really begins to unfold, is with Elizabeth, because this is the beginning of something she had been waiting for her entire life. And for us at Christmas time, we ask for something. We say, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this. And we wait. And then when we get it, we celebrate. See, Mary and Elizabeth at this point, they're celebrating not because of the fact they're pregnant, but they're celebrating because of the circumstances around their pregnancy. Neither one of them are supposed to be pregnant. So this gift is something that means more to them than anything else. And we kind of took a page out of their book that when the things that we celebrate at Christmas time, we are just like them. We tend to celebrate the gifts that mean the most to us. Those are the things that we celebrate. We don't open the gift, the ones that we don't really care for that much, and go, oh, wow, look what I got. We don't shout it from the rooftops for that one. We shout it from the rooftops for the ones that mean the most to us, the ones that we were really longing for and hoping for. Now, what is a story without a villain? Every great story that was ever written has a villain of some kind. Whether it's Kylo Ren and Darth Vader from Star Wars, whether it's Lex Luthor from Superman, or whether we go a little bit further back in time and we see the white whale from Moby Dick, or Captain Hook from Peter Pan, or even something as simple as Miss Hannigan from Annie, or even the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. My wife just had a chill run down her spine. But every story, every compelling story that changes something about us or that triggers something inside of us has a villain that we can associate ourselves to or identify with in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a villain that maybe we've come up against before or whether it's one that's just kind of like, oh, wow, they're pretty rough. Well, the Christmas story is no different. If you have your Bible, go ahead and turn to Matthew chapter 2. This is where we're going to pick up our story, is in Matthew chapter 2, and we're going to pick it up in verse 1. Now, I know that we're taking the story a little bit, kind of twisted around in terms of timetable and all, but that's okay. Because the story itself is not a matter of when the things happened, it's a matter of the fact that they actually happened. Okay? So Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, we're introduced to the villain of the story, okay? So here we go, Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, okay? So this is after he's been born. This is the time frame where things are really starting to unfold, okay? So now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, why in the world so much specificity here? Why in the world is there so much stuff in this first verse? Again, just like in one of the series we did a little while back, it's a way of tying things together to say this happened at a real time to real people in a real place, and here's when it happened so that it can be verified, okay? So now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. And they were saying this, where is he who has been born king of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. And when Herod heard this, he was troubled. Now, we hear this and we see this and we go, man, Herod was not happy. But why was Herod not happy? What in the world was going on? See, in this moment in time right here, think about that gift that you received. Okay? Think about the gift that you got, that you opened it up, you thought it was going to be one thing, you opened it up, and it was something completely different. It catches you off guard. This caught Herod off guard, okay? See, Herod was sitting, Christmas morning had come, he thought he was getting the thing he had hoped for. He thought he was going to have just a great day of being in power, but instead he's left to face his worst nightmare. See, Herod is king of the Jews at this point, okay? This is a problem because Herod wasn't Jewish. Herod was not a Jewish king. Herod was actually a king that was put in place by the Romans, okay? So let this sink in for a second. Herod's not a legitimate king. He's not Jewish. And now here these people are coming in saying, so where is he who's been born king of the Jews? A legitimate heir to the king had been born. And this just messes with Herod's plan. Now, this isn't the first time this had happened, okay? Herod was a brutal man. He was one that, even as his sons got older and were in a position to be able to take over the throne when he died, he had them executed. And then when his wife stood up to him and said, don't you think this is a bit too far? He had her executed. And then had her brother executed. Herod was a man who was willing to do anything that it took. And here he is in a situation where a legitimate Jewish king had been born, and he didn't even know until strangers came in and told him what was going on. Christmas morning had finally come, and he had a ginormous lump of coal to remind him of just how naughty he'd been. This was not okay for him. Most likely, he's sitting in this situation where he's thinking to himself, okay, so all of these things have happened. I've eliminated these people, and these people so that I can actually maintain control and power and authority. And now there's been a real king who's been born. And it's probably not going to be too long, because at this point, he has no idea how long it's been since the baby's been born. All he's heard is that, okay, so we know there's a king that was born. We want to see him. And so in his mind, he's thinking to himself, probably, okay, so there's a king. I've broke all kinds of laws to keep what I'm at. What's going to happen to me? Is justice going to be swift? Is it going to be slow and painful? How is this going to affect me? Because I like it the way it is right now. See, most of us don't have to deal with this idea of losing our position because of a Christmas gift or because of something that came our way that we weren't expecting. What we deal with is opening a present that looks and feels like it's going to be one thing, and we open it up and boom, it's a manicure set. Or we go to open it up and we feel something in there and we're like, oh, it's a gift card. And we open it up and it's a membership to the Fruit of the Month Club. Which if you like that, if you want that, more power to you. Or but these are the things that we look at and we go, well, that's just not at all what I wanted. See, this wasn't at all what Herod wanted either. He didn't want a new king because it meant he was going to have to give up his position, his authority, his power. But he misunderstood what the gift was. So he starts to formulate this plan and he says, okay, wow, that's amazing. So tell me more. And so they tell him more, they give him more information, and he says, okay, great. Here's where you want to go. Now, when you go, find this new king, and then come tell me where he's at so that I can worship him too. Now, these guys have no clue who Herod is. They have no clue of his past. They have no clue of what he's capable of. But we do. And so we read that and we hear that story and we go, this is not going to end well. Because here's the thing about villains. They always foreshadow what they're going to do. They always give us a glimpse into who they really are. And so Herod kind of tips his hand and he says, go and find him and then come back and tell me where he's at so that I can go worship him too. And he takes the information he's got and he kind of sits on it and he waits. These strangers leave, they go, and while they're gone, an angel appears to him and says, okay, here's what I want you to do. Herod is not a good guy. His plan is not to go and worship this new king. He's going to do something horrible. So when you leave, you need to leave by this route. You need to go a completely different way. And so they do. And then time passes. Matthew chapter 2, verse 16. Time has passed. Herod's waiting for these guys to come back. He's waiting for them to show up to tell him what he needs to know. And then we read this in verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious. Now, this is the thing that I find interesting here. Up to this point, Herod really wasn't angry. You don't see any point in here that he was angry. There's nothing up until this point that says he was angry. At this point, it says, listen, then Herod became furious. Why did he become furious? He didn't get what he wanted. He was hoping for a Christmas miracle. What we would consider a Christmas miracle. Oh, wow, there's a new king, and he's going to take my place, and I need to stop this as soon as possible. It's kind of like Ralphie wanting a Red Ryder BB gun. He's hoping and hoping and hoping and hoping and hoping that it's going to turn out the way he wants it to, but he's really not 100% sure. But because he's a king, he's thinking these guys are going to come back. And he feels like he's been tricked. So he becomes furious. And so then what he does is he makes the most absolute rational decision any human being can make after they've been tricked. So he becomes furious. And it says he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and of all of that region who were 2 years old or under. Now, this is the most rational thing I can think of happening, right? No. Herod doesn't get what he wants, so he freaks out. And he sends a death squad to kill every male child 2 years old or under. Because he had taken the information that the wise men had given him and kind of figured out the time frames he was looking at. And he shows us everything about who he was. A rational person would have said, you know what? It's not the end of the world. A rational person would have said, it was a good ride while it lasted. But Herod shows us exactly who he is, because Herod opposed and rejected everything about what was happening. He didn't care who it affected. He didn't care how it made him look. He just wanted what he wanted. Now, we look at Herod and we say, boy, he was a rough guy. I'm glad I'm not like him. But aren't we? Sure, we've never had the person who told us about a gift we didn't want executed. But aren't we all a little bit like that? We get something we didn't really want. We get a gift that we didn't want, and what do? we roll our eyes, and we just toss it to the side. Or we make a big deal out of it. Boy, that sure is nice, but it really would have been nice to have this instead. I am like Herod. I am Herod. Christmas, my 16th birthday, after my 16th birthday for Christmas, my parents decided they were going to get me a car for Christmas. But it wasn't the car I wanted. And so what did I do? I moped, and I complained, and made a big deal about how it just wasn't what I wanted. And made my parents feel this small, because they loved me enough to give me an extravagant gift that I would have never been able to take care of on my own. So guys, the reality is this, the truth is this. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how good of a person you are. It doesn't matter how godly of a person you are. Human beings always reject the gifts they don't want. Even if it's a gift that we look at and go, wow, I really need that. For how many years have people made fun of the fact that the grandparents always give socks and underwear for Christmas? And as kids, we roll our eyes. And as we get older and we become adults, we look at it and go, wow, I see how I really needed that. And then we look at it and go, boy, I wish they'd do it now. Because socks and underwear get expensive. We get something we don't want, we push it away, and we don't want it, we don't want to go near it, because we fail to see the true value of the gift. For centuries, and especially moving now up into the 21st century and the world we live in now, we reject the Christmas story. We push back against it because it's a gift that nobody really understood the value of. It doesn't make sense to us. We reject it because of what it means if the story is true. Herod didn't necessarily reject the story of a baby being born because of what it was. He rejected it because of what it meant for him. He rejected this gift of a king being born because it meant that he was going to have to give something up. He was going to have to change. It was going to force him to confront things about himself he never wanted to even look at. And it means the same thing for us. If the Christmas story is true, which as a Jesus follower, I believe it is true. I believe there are historical backings for the story. But if this story is true, so let's just eliminate the it absolutely is true. If you're in here and you're not a Jesus follower, I want you to look at it through this lens for a second, okay? What if it is? What if there's no disputing it? What if I could take you right now to the place where it happened? There was no question about it. There were so many eyewitnesses that could pinpoint it, that you could walk directly up to it and they could say, right here in this place is where it happened. A young girl named Mary, a young man named Joseph, had a baby right here that was foretold by an angel, that had been foretold by another angel centuries before. This is where it happened. If that's true and if that happened, it means that we are not who we think we are. We're not kings and queens sitting on a throne. The buck doesn't stop with us. We are not in control of our own destiny. We are not able to save ourselves. We are not able to be good enough to earn a place next to God in heaven. You say, well, okay, I'm not concerned about that. Okay, well, let's just say for a second you don't believe there is a God in heaven. If this story is true, then it can only happen through the workings and movements of a deity who is bigger than you and bigger than me. It means that we are in need. Because you don't get a gift if you don't need it. Especially the one that you never wanted in the first place, like socks and underwear. You get those because you need them. And if the Christmas story is true, even with as unbelievable as it feels sometimes, if it's true, that means there is a need that needed to be met that we could not meet for ourselves. And if that's true, that means that we have to step off of the throne that we've placed ourselves on, that we never inherited, and allow the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords to take his rightful place in our hearts and in the world that we live in and in the way that we live our lives. But it's hard. Because if we look at ourselves and we understand it and we say, you know what? Yeah, it's true. Then that means you have a choice. You can either take it, hook, line, and sinker, and run with it, or you can reject it because it's not a gift that you really want right now. But rejecting it doesn't change the fact that you need it. And you may not want it now. And it may require swallowing a lot of pride to take that gift and smile and say thank you. But one day, you will do the same thing that millions of people have done throughout history. And you will look at that gift and you will say, how in the world did I push this away? Because now I understand the value. I understand how much I really needed it. Guys, the Christmas story isn't just a story that we read. It's not just a story that we tell our kids and that we read in church. It's not just a story about people. It's a story about a gift that was given that God knew would be ultimately rejected over and over and over again. But that he still loved us enough and loved those people enough to give it anyway. And even this morning, he's sitting here watching what's unfolding and he's saying, you're absolutely right. It's a gift. It's just waiting there for you to take it. And if you push it away, I'm still going to love you. It's not going to change how I look at you. But you can't begin to imagine. You can't even begin to imagine how this gift can change you. I don't know where you're at this morning. I don't know where you're at on this whole grand journey of life. I don't know if you're completely 100% sitting on the throne of your life, or if you're just kind of half on thinking, okay, God, I'm going to give you this much, but I'm going to retain this much. Or maybe you're at the place where you're standing at the throne, so that when the time comes and when you feel out of control, you can just sit back down real quick. Or maybe you're all the way off the throne and you're sitting there and you're kneeling at the throne saying, that's not my throne, that's God's. Wherever you are, here's my challenge to you. Don't reject the gift. It's simple. Don't reject it because you don't want it. You may not understand what it is. You may not understand the full value of it, but don't just push it away and be done with it. At least take it and hold it in your hands and at least look at it. And if you look at it and you say, I don't understand what this is, take it and turn to someone who has it and has said, oh, I know exactly what that is, and let them explain it to you. Because this is the kind of gift that can change the world. And that's why God gave it to us. Even though we didn't even know we needed it. What are you going to do? Because the choice is yours, whether you stay sitting on the throne or whether you give it up. That's up to you. Because we're humans, we will always reject the gifts that we don't want. The question is, are you willing to rethink whether or not you really want it? Father, thank you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for being willing to deal with rejection over and over and over again, simply because we didn't understand exactly what this gift was. Father, my prayer for us as a church and as people is that you will open our eyes to help us see exactly what this gift is. Help us to see the real value of it. Father, the throne that we tend to put ourselves on is not ours, it's yours. And I pray this morning that we will honestly consider stepping down and letting you take your rightful place. In Jesus' name, amen.